I have to make changes in my life in order for me to be a better person. The traditional role of men as protectors must be brought back. It's time we quit laying blame to the residents of school, to Indian affairs, or whoever want to blame alcohol or drugs. We need to teach our young men. The men must talk about family violence that goes on behind closed doors. Teach a young generation of young men coming up about respecting women, and it all starts at home.
We did a baby Jurassic on September 28, 2012. A part of my heart. No parent should ever have to go through this nightmare and not knowing. I used to get these horrible thoughts, feelings about my baby, but I would just push them away. Because I had to. If I didn't, then I'm not crazy for sure. My family has some closure now, as we try to go on with our lives. Amber lives through her son Jacob, whom I'm raising now. My heart goes out to all the families that have a missing loved one. My thoughts and prayers are with you all. Thank you.
But more importantly, I work in our communities as a traditional healer, traditional person that provides ceremony. And I want to acknowledge all of the people that are here today, and thank you. I want to bring you a message of hope, and a message that perhaps it will allow everyone to think through this entire process. It'll allow people to find that place in your heart where we truly can come together in unity. I had the responsibility of helping Vivian through a ceremony before Amber was found. We did I performed ceremonies amongst my Cree people. And one of those ceremonies allows us to go out and find missing people. And through the power of the Creator, and the grandfathers and the grandmothers, we have that ability to utilize our traditions, our ceremonies, our gifts. We have been here for thousands of years, my friends. And we as Indigenous people, we must take a strong look at those ceremonies to guide us into the future. It speaks to our soul, speaks to our heart and our spirit. If we are to survive as a nation, as a people on this Turtle Island, we must embrace that. We must return home to that way of thinking.
Sometimes is interpreted as offering, being a cane, something to lean on for those whose hearts are heavy, who are feeling sorrow, who are feeling pain, who are shedding tears. Each one of you who are here are medicine for the families. And so too is it I. I'm honored to be here with all of you, expressing appreciation to the drummers, to the prayer, the opportunity to be part of ceremony with the elder in training, as Elder Rose said. I'm really appreciative of those who've brought us all together, the organizers, April. I'm thankful to have had the opportunity to hear the words. Share in a moment where tears are flowing to families. Chief Buri, I want to thank you for your leadership. Conversations that we've had, I was expressing earlier to Vivian, to the family. Heartfelt expressions from a chief who cares deeply for his people. We heard him speak here, and I'm proud to stand with all of you men. I might not be able to stand too tall. This is as tall as I can stand, but I'm going to stand up with you. Every single one of you.
So we are in traditional Treaty 6 territory. I'd like to recognize that. And then I'd like to thank the elders for their leadership and to give our deep prayers to all those here who have lost family members, who have gone through tremendous suffering as a result of the murdered and missing First Nations, Métis, and Inuit women. As Shawn as Chief was speaking, I was thinking to myself, what do I see as an issue with this? And I see that there needs to be a much stronger relationship between those who are coming to the city and those who are in the city. More and more people from the reservations are coming to live in cities, and actually there's a much greater increase in numbers of Aboriginal people living in cities. And there's not enough institutions within our cities to allow our First Nations, Métis, and Aboriginal peoples to have a presence of comfort. And I think that's something that we really need to look at. And if you don't feel comfortable in a place you are, I think you're not able to, create the success that you want to have. I think in the city of Edmonton we haven't done that. I think there's lots of institutions we need to develop, we need to partner with. But as a partnership between ourselves as a city, as an entity, and the various institutions that come to our city through reservations, we've just been lucky enough to sign, and the Chief was there to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Treaty 6 nations, and to increase our relationships with them, to improve the opportunities for their people in our city. And it was Cardinal's here, and I know he's been trying desperately to create and to build within our city institutions that will allow people to feel comfortable, to find this as a home. I think that's something we can do as a city. And if people feel more comfortable in their place of residence and as they visit, I think you feel safer, you feel more respected, and I think in time, things will change.
For more than 5 years, the Stolen Sisters Awareness Walk has honored the lives of missing and murdered Aboriginal women and girls in our city. These personal tragedies deeply affect the families that are here today and the friends who have lost mothers, daughters, and sisters to violence. We gather together today to show our support for these grieving families and to help them heal. We also gather to speak out against violence Aboriginal women and children experience. And we gather to reaffirm our commitment to strengthen our ties with our urban Aboriginal community. And certainly, Mayor Mandel is absolutely right. We certainly want to work with urban Aboriginal community, Métis, Inuit, regardless of whether you've been here for 30 years as an urban Aboriginal or whether you're just getting here. We value all of you, and we know that through federal work and federal MPs and provincial MLAs, that we're all now coming to the realization that urban Aboriginal issues are extremely, extremely important, and hope that stays in the dialogue of all political bodies, including First Nations.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by thanking Elder Wabiska for her opening prayer. I'd like to thank all the elders that are present. I see Elder Gilman here. I'd like to thank the National Chief Atleo, Chief Cordery, all of the families, the Institute for the Advancement of Aboriginal Women, along with the Native Women's Association of Canada, fellow dignitaries, and friends. I'm honored to be here today with you, and I'm here as an ally to show solidarity with you on behalf of the Alberta New Democrat Caucus. I'm also honored to have the Aboriginal Relations portfolio. I'm proud to join with you again today as I participated in the Stolen Sisters Walk in the past when I was a teacher at Inner City High School. And I'm glad to see some of my students and fellow staff from Inner City High School are here today. Sadly, at our school, we have as well shared in the loss of students who were very close with us. I'd like to commend you for your petition to the federal government for a national inquiry. Alberta has the second highest number of cases of missing and murdered Aboriginal women in Canada, second only to BC. There needs to be more cooperation between the different levels of government, and the province of Alberta needs to take a leadership role. The government of Alberta has been too silent on this issue, and today we are calling for them to break the silence. Therefore, let us work together to pressure the government to send a message that the number of sisters that are taken from us is not acceptable, and that we demand real action. Thank you again for inviting me here today. I'm honored to share this moment with you, and my heart goes out to all of our families and friends. Hi, hi.
Thank you very much for including me in this very important ceremony. I'd like to thank the elder for her prayer, which means a great deal to me. I'd like to thank the drummers for sharing their song. I'd like to thank National Chief Shawn for being with us here in Alberta, which I know a lot means to all of us. Chief Cordery, you are a great leader, and it's a great privilege to continue working with you. Muriel, Stanley, Venne, you continue to provide incredible leadership, and I appreciate your sisterhood. To all the elders here today, members of the families, representatives of the RCMP and the police, who do the tough work on the ground on this issue, great appreciation. I've had the privilege in my time as a member of Parliament to also serve as the Aboriginal Affairs critic. And it was an incredible honor. And even though I'm no longer that critic, I need you all to know that I have not stopped being there for you every day that I am in Parliament. My colleague Jean Crowder, who has served many years as the Aboriginal Affairs Critic, is going to be traveling to Alberta this coming week and traveling up to Fort Chipewyan. And I know that she'll be looking forward to meeting with you, Chief. We have to do far more. What really deeply troubles me is that we keep having to count up the number of missing and murdered Aboriginal women and girls. And we now know also Aboriginal men and boys. The action needs to be taken when there's only one murdered and missing member of our nations. The time to act is long past. And I can attest to you personally that I was present in Parliament when National Leader Atleo appeared before us, and in his list of priorities that he shared with the representatives of all parties, he called for, and this was well a year ago, he called for action now on missing and murdered Aboriginal women and girls. And in my party, the New Democratic Party, I have to tell you, we take this call very seriously. And I take it upon my shoulders to work with all of the members of Parliament, regardless of what party they're from, what affiliation. We all have to stand together. We have to take action now. My feeling is it's not enough just to have an inquiry. It's my responsibility, which I have done. I have raised this issue in the House with Minister Ambrose, who is responsible for the status of women. I have raised with her that her government must approach the United Nations, who are right now undertaking a review of the missing and murdered Aboriginal women and children in this country. And the government of Canada must extend an invitation to that investigative body to come here and to meet with our elders, meet with our chiefs and leaders, meet with the families, meet with the community members. And it is very important that we also reach out to the government and say the time is now to extend that invitation to the United Nations. Without further ado, bring them to this country.
Myself thinking, the question that begged to be answered, or asked rather, is what in the hell are the police doing? What's going on there? I've jotted some things down, and I hope to be able to provide some of those answers for you today. Unlikely that I will have everything, but just to give you a bit of a glimpse into our world, our realm, and the way we see things. As you may or may not be aware, CARE was formed back in the early 2000s, 0203, as a result of these very tragic trends that we're speaking about today. That was very alarming to us in senior management. And as a result of some analysis on missing and murdered, the commanding officer of K Division struck a task force known today as Project CARE. We have since dropped the project word from our name because we are no longer a project. We are the CARE unit. We are permanent. Projects are come with an end date. What was most concerning about the cases that were examined was that competent major crime units from various jurisdictions had already investigated these missing and murdered cases, and they remained unsolved. As the CARE unit was formed, there was specific focus placed on these very matters, the trend, the patterns, and what was of most concern was the fact that there could be a pattern of offenders, one or more, that were targeting these particular groups of people. In 2005, the Edmonton Police Service joined our efforts and remain a very committed partner of ours to this day. I can say to you today that we've investigated several thousand tasks, interviewed several thousand persons of interest. We have been to, I would suggest, every federal correctional institute in Canada, coast to coast, investigating. We've been to nearly all provincial jails, remand centers, and any other places group homes that would afford us the opportunity to meet with persons of interest or individuals that may provide information to help us in our efforts to solve some of these cases. We continue to attempt to recruit the best investigators that we can bring into our environment. This is a very patient, tedious, slow, methodical approach. The personalities required to accept these cases and bring them to fruition are very special people. We don't take just anybody, I can assure you of that. The word I noticed in the literature from the organizers was the disproportionate amount of Indigenous, Aboriginal missing and murdered. I don't think that we would want to see a proportionate amount. I don't think that we would want to see any numbers of missing and murdered.
I'm going to read our joint statement, which is meant for October 4th, but obviously I know we're a few days off. So, just joking around. So without further ado, October 4th is a day when we honor the lives of missing and murdered Aboriginal women and girls and support families who have been tragically touched by the loss of a loved one to violence. Vigils take many forms: a rally, a candlelit vigil, a workshop, a moment of silence, a walk, or a gathering of people to share memories and a meal. It is our hope that the Sisters of Spirit in Spirit Vigil movement will live on for generations, with October 4th being a national day of remembrance for Aboriginal women and girls, not only in Canada but across the globe. In 2012, we are more committed than ever to honoring our missing and murdered Aboriginal mothers, daughters, sisters, grandmothers, and aunties on October 4th. We see this commitment with the historic and unprecedented 100 Vigils mark. More than 100 cities and communities are celebrating October 4th today, or 2 days ago. No other event in Canada brings so many Aboriginal communities and Canadian citizens together to specifically celebrate, honor, and support Aboriginal women and girls. Violence has impacted our communities and people in many ways. We all suffer, directly and indirectly. Sadly, no one is immune. As women, as the givers of life, we have a great responsibility to ensure the well-being and safety of our mothers, daughters, sisters, aunties, and grandmothers. Our men also have an important role to play as our supports and in ending the cycles of violence. Our leaders are strong, and they are supporting this issue. We need to work together. As a society, Canadians are also coming out to stand alongside us in solidarity. This is why we do this work. This is why we are here today. This is why we are committed to moving this issue forward. There is great sense in unity. We are calling on all levels of government to work with Aboriginal women and representative organizations, including the Native Women's Association of Canada, who is a leader in this field of research and advocacy.
Is it that Indigenous women are being murdered on a regular basis? That's the hard question, and that's what needs to be answered, because then we can take the action that's needed. We identified that in 2005 that the real issue was indifference. Who cared? Who cared if they found another body? Who cared? And so today is an indication of the caring that has been built up by many, many women in many parts of this country who have marched and walked and pleaded and said over and over again at the Aboriginal Women's Summit, at presentations, too many to mention. For 30 years, we knew this 30 years ago. In 1997, I stood here and named the names of the women that were murdered at that time, and there was 110. The real names, the real people that were murdered. And you know what? No one cared. When Connie Dieter Buffalo wrote the article in the Edmonton Journal about the deaths of the women and said, no candlelight vigils for our women. They're found in a motel room. The bodies are found on the side of a house, in a gravel pit, or in a shallow grave just outside of town. That's what we were faced with. Indifference. Nobody cared. And the hope is, in this campaign, that every Canadian who hears that Amber Tuccaro was pleading with her, presumably her murderer, that they will feel that that could be their daughter, that our pain for the deaths of our women is just like when a police officer dies or when a grandma dies, or it's the same. There is no difference between the pain that anyone faces when they lose a loved one. So I believe, as many have said, that there is hope. There is hope that the people of this country, this supposedly warm, compassionate, and loving country, will feel that same love and compassion and fairness towards the Indigenous people of this country, because it's all of us, but especially the Aboriginal and Indigenous women whose numbers are increasing.